Welcome back, Bobcats. Let's take a look at today's edition of adding and subtracting polynomials. All right, so what is that? Well, in algebra, we use what we call a polynomial. And here's an example of a polynomial. Polynomial means it has many terms. Each one of these is a term. And so, when we look, it tells us 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 terms in this one, okay? Now, the first thing, one term, we call that a monomial, okay? An example of a monomial would be something with one term, so maybe 4x. Binomial is what we call something with 2 terms. So a binomial, an example, maybe something like 4x minus 3. Binomial, another word you can think of, or maybe another way you can remember it, would be like a bicycle. And we know that bicycle has 2 wheels. Okay, and then the next thing that we have is a trinomial. That's something with 3 terms. So maybe something like 7x squared plus 4x minus 3. Something like that. And you can think, oh, well, what would be, how could I remember that? Trinomial, like a tricycle. Something with 3. Okay. And then again, I said this a minute ago, but if it has 4 or more terms, we just call that a polynomial. So 1 term, 2, and 3 have specific names: monomial, binomial, and trinomial. And then 4 or more terms is a polynomial. Our goal every time is to make things be simple or simplified. We are trying to make as simplified as possible. All right? So here's the deal. First thing as our examples is, if I see a plus sign with parentheses, then what that's going to do is that's going to tell me that I can drop the parentheses. So essentially, I can pretend that the parentheses aren't even there. So I have x squared minus 3x minus 4 plus 2x squared minus x plus 1. And so the goal is to combine things together, simplify things, make it smaller. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get all of the, let's see, we have an x squared here. That's not an x squared. Here's an x squared. Okay, so we're going to combine those 2 things together, and that will make 3x squared. Then I'm going to combine the next term. I have negative 3x, and I can combine him with not that, but this. And so what I have is negative 3 minus, and that is a 1x that's sitting here. So negative 3 minus 1. Well, negative 3 minus 1, if you're not sure, negative 3 minus 1. That tells you that. You cannot type x. It doesn't do anything. You cannot type x. You can only type numbers. So this is negative 4, and we attach our x. And then the last term is, okay, let's get a different color, and we'll highlight this negative 4. and this positive 1, and we simply just add that stuff together. So we're going to take a negative 4 and a positive 1, and that gives me negative 3. So this becomes negative 3. And that is my final answer, because I have 3x squareds here, a negative 4x, and a negative 3. I cannot combine anything else. All right, let's take a look at the next problem. This is what it would look like on a test. In fact, this was a STAR test question, and it said, what expression is equivalent to this? Since I have a plus sign with parentheses, so I see mess it up. I see a plus and parentheses, so just make them go away. And so now we're just going to add these things together. So I'm going to get out my trusty highlighter again. I'm going to add 5RT with 6RT, and that's going to be 11RT. Then I go to the next thing. I have negative 3RW and a negative 4RW. So I'm going to take negative 3 and a negative 4, and that gives me negative 7. So now I have negative 7RW. And then I'm going to take my negative TW and add it to my positive TW, and that would give me negative 6TW. Negative 8 plus 2, negative 6TW. And so that would tell me that my answer is B. All right, let's take a look at the next thing. So we also have solving by subtraction. Subtraction. So when I see subtraction, we're thinking, oh, we have a minus in front of our parentheses. Then we have to change all the signs. So in other words, if I see a minus in the parentheses, that's going to tell me to change each term's signs. So you're going to change each term's signs. So in other words, this is where we would change signs. So it'd go like this. I'm going to rewrite this. This is 1x squared minus 3x's minus 4. And then because I see a parentheses with the minus in front of it, this is going to be minus 2x squared plus 1x and minus 1. And so now I'm ready to add things together. I'll start with my first term, 1x squared and 2x squared. So we have 1 minus 2, negative 1x squared. Then I have a negative 3. That's not the same. Negative 3 and negative 1, I'm sorry, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Attach my x. And then I have negative 4 with my negative 1. and that makes -5. And that's my final answer for that. All right, my next problem. This right here is a plus with parentheses, so we can drop the parentheses. This right here is a minus parenthesis, so that means what we're going to do, so here we're going to drop and here we're going to change signs. So if I drop the parentheses, we have 6mp plus 4 opposite minus 5mp squared minus 4mp minus 1. So now we add things together, combine our terms together. So the first thing that I'm actually going to start with is this guy, if I were to write this in the correct order. And he's not like terms with anything else, so I'm just going to rewrite him and put him first. -5mp squared. Then I'm going to go find my other thing. Here, we'll do this. 6mp, not the same. So 6 and -4 is positive 2mp. And then we have our positive 4 and our -1. Positive 4 and -1 is positive 3. And that would be our final answer. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll check you later, and have a good one.